The woman appeared like smoke between the tables. One second, the cafe was just the usual Tuesday afternoon rhythm. Clinking spoons, low murmurs, the hiss of the espresso machine, and the next, she was standing right beside me. So close I could smell the faint trace of rain on her dark trench coat. She looked late 50s, maybe early 60s, steel gray hair scraped back into a severe bun that pulled the skin at her temples tight. Her eyes were the color of wet slate and carried, the kind of stare that made you feel you'd already been judged and found wanting. She set a small blue box on the table between my half-finished latte and the sugar shaker. The box was matte, no logo, no ribbon, just plain deep cobalt about the size of a deck of cards. "You are going to need this tonight," she said. Her voice was low, urgent, almost swallowed by the cafe noise. I opened my mouth. "Who are you? How do you know me?" But nothing came out. Before I could form even one coherent question, she had already turned. Her coat flared slightly as she moved through the narrow aisle between tables, and then she simply melted into the crowd near the door. One moment solid, the next gone, as though the street outside had swallowed her whole. I sat frozen for several heartbeats. My water glass had tipped when I flinched earlier. A small puddle was spreading toward the box. Kimani and Isoke were still at the register, backs to me, heads close together, laughing softly at something on Isoke's phone. Neither of them had seen her. No one had. My hand moved before my brain gave permission. I swept the box off the table and dropped it into my purse, burying it beneath my scarf, my wallet, my keys. The leather bag suddenly felt heavier, as though the little cobalt rectangle carried actual weight instead of mystery. "Ma, you ready?" Kimani called, turning toward me with that easy, practiced smile he used whenever he wanted to smooth something over. "Yes," I heard myself say. My voice sounded surprisingly normal. "Let's go." The drive back to the estate passed in fragments. Kimani talked about property values in Bluffton, new gated communities going up near Hilton Head, how manageable life could be in a smaller place with amenities. Isoke nodded along, adding occasional comments about maintenance costs and winter heating bills. I answered in short sentences, nodding when I was supposed to. But most of my mind was inside my purse, wrapped around that blue box like fingers around a live wire. They dropped me at the top of the long dirt driveway as usual. Neither offered to come inside for tea. I watched the black SUV's taillights shrink until they disappeared behind the line of loblolly pines. Then I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The house waited at the end of the drive like it always did. 2 stories of white siding, green shutters, Balthazar, and I had painted together one blistering July 5 years earlier, the wide front porch where we used to sit with iced tea and watch fireflies rise from the grass. Tonight the windows were dark except for the porch light I always left on a timer. The old red barn loomed to the left, faded to a dull rust color. Beyond it stretched our 40 acres, fallow fields, a thin strip of mixed hardwood, the creek that ran brown after heavy rain. I used to love every inch of this place. These days it mostly felt like a very beautiful mausoleum. I locked the front door behind me. 3 locks now instead of the single one we'd used for 37 years. After Balthazar disappeared, locking up became habit, then ritual, then necessity. In the kitchen, I set my purse on the oak table we'd bought at an auction in Ridgeland. When Kimani was still in elementary school, the wood still carried the faint scars of homework. Spilled juice, holiday cookie cutters. I pulled the blue box free and placed it dead center under the overhead light. For almost a full minute, I only stared. My hands were trembling when I finally lifted the lid. White tissue paper, something solid beneath it. I parted the paper like I was defusing a bomb. A phone, not just any phone, Balthazar's phone. The same scratched black case with the faded Morehouse College sticker he'd put on the day our son graduated. The same hairline crack in the upper right corner from the afternoon. He dropped it 20 feet while repairing barn shingles. I'd teased him for weeks about buying a new one. He'd laughed and said the crack gave it character. The police had sworn the phone went into Cypress Lake with the truck. They dragged the bottom for 3 weeks. Nothing. Probably settled in the silt, the sheriff told me with that practiced mixture of sympathy and finality. Water keeps what it takes, and yet here it was. I lifted it carefully, as though it might crumble. The screen was black. I pressed the power button, expecting nothing. The phone buzzed once, short, sharp vibration, and woke up. 100% battery, 1 bar of signal. Wallpaper, our 40th anniversary photo. Balthazar's arm around my shoulders, both of us laughing at something our granddaughter had just said. His eyes crinkled at the corners the way they always did when he was truly happy. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe properly. Call log, empty. Messages, empty. Contacts, empty. Only that single photo remained, floating on the home screen like the last survivor of a shipwreck. The wall clock read 6:47 p.m. The woman's whisper replayed in my head. At 11:15, when it rings, answer it. And Mrs. Vaughn, do not trust anyone. 4.5 hours. I made chamomile tea out of pure habit, the same box Balthazar used to tease me about. Drinking boiled grass again, Theo? I didn't drink it. I just held the mug until the warmth soaked into my palms and watched steam curl toward the ceiling while the phone sat on the table like a sleeping cobra. At 7:30, I tried calling Kimani on my regular phone. 6 rings, voicemail. I didn't leave a message. What could I possibly say? Son? A stranger just gave me your dead father's phone that's been missing for a year. Also, she told me not to trust you or your wife or the police. He already watched me like I might break at any second. That confession would have him calling doctors before sunrise. By 9 o'clock, I was walking the house, checking every lock twice. The shotgun Balthazar once kept in the hall closet was long gone, sold when Kimani left for college. All I had were kitchen knives and paranoia. At 10, I pulled out the thin folder the sheriff's department had given me when they closed the case. I knew every page by heart, but I spread them across the table anyway. Accident report, fisherman's statement, dive logs, photos of the truck being winched from the lake, driver's door gaping open like a wound. The official conclusion, slick road, sharp curve, momentary inattention. Tragic but not criminal. Balthazar had driven that stretch of County Road 17 his entire life. He knew every dip, every crown, every place the gravel could shift after rain. He drove like an old man even when he was 30, slow, deliberate, hands at 10 and 2. The idea that he simply lost control had never sat right with me. But doubt is one thing. Evidence is another. At 10:50, I forced myself to sit. The clock hands moved like they were wading through molasses. At 11:14, I stared at the second hand. At exactly 11:15, the phone rang. Balthazar's old ringtone, that smooth Otis Redding. Track he'd refused to change since the late 90s, sliced through the kitchen. Silence like a blade. I jerked so violently the mug tipped. Chamomile splashed across the accident report pages. Unknown caller. My thumb hovered over the screen. On the third ring, I answered and pressed the phone to my ear. Hello? Nothing at first. Just breathing. Slow, calm, deliberate. Hello? Louder this time. Who is this? A pause. Then a voice. Low. Slightly distorted as though filtered through cheap software, but unmistakable. Theodora. My name in his mouth felt like a hand reaching inside my chest. Do not trust Kimani. Do not trust Isoke. Do not trust the police. You are in danger. The line went dead. I sat motionless, phone still against my ear, listening to the flat dial tone until it switched to the off-hook beeping. My husband, my dead husband, had just spoken to me, or someone who sounded exactly like him had. The kitchen felt 20 degrees colder. I didn't sleep. I sat at that oak table until the eastern sky turned the color of bruised plums, until the first cardinals began calling from the pines. By 6 a.m., my eyes burned and my back ached, but my mind was strangely clear. I couldn't go to the police. The voice had forbidden it. I couldn't go to Kimani. The voice had named him first. That left me alone with a resurrected phone, a midnight warning, and 40 years of marriage telling me that Balthazar Vaughn never lied to me lightly. So I started treating the phone like evidence instead of a miracle. In daylight, I could see details I'd missed in the panic last night. The battery at 100%, no swelling, no corrosion. If this device had spent a year underwater, or even in a drawer, it should have been dead. Someone had charged it, recently, deliberately. I scrolled the photo gallery again. Only that one anniversary picture remained. I checked settings. No location history, no recent apps, nothing. Then I felt along the edges of the case. My fingernail caught on something thin, wedged between the plastic and the phone body. A folded scrap of paper, so small it could have stayed hidden forever. I pried it free. Balthazar's handwriting. Neat, slanted slightly right. The same hand that used to leave me notes on the coffee pot. 4 words only. The truth is buried. Search. I stared at those words until the letters blurred. Buried. Literal or figurative? With Balthazar, it could be either. He loved puzzles, loved making the grandkids hunt for Easter eggs behind the barn, loved hiding Christmas presents in places only I would think to look. But this didn't feel like a game. This felt like goodbye. And like a final instruction. Dawn came slow and gray, the kind of light that makes everything look tired before the day even starts. I hadn't moved from the kitchen table since the call ended. Balthazar's phone lay face down now, like I could hide from it by not looking. The scrap of paper with his 4 words, "The truth is buried. Search," was folded small between my fingers, the edges already softening from how many times I'd unfolded and refolded it. My regular phone buzzed once. A text from Kamani. "Morning, Ma, bringing coffee. Be there in 20, just us." I stared at the heart emoji until it blurred. 20 minutes. Not enough time to think, too much time to panic. I forced myself up. Legs stiff, back protesting. I splashed cold water on my face in the downstairs bathroom, avoiding the mirror. I didn't want to see what grief and one sleepless night had done to my eyes. When I came back to the kitchen, I slid the mysterious phone and the note into the deepest pocket of my cardigan sweater. The old navy one, Balthazar always said, made me look like a librarian. Safe, close, hidden. The crunch of gravel announced him before I saw the black SUV nose around the bend. Kimani alone this time. No Isoke in the passenger seat. That felt worse somehow, more deliberate. He stepped out carrying a cardboard tray, with 2 tall-to-go cups and a paper bag that smelled like fresh pastries from that overpriced place in town. His smile was wide, practiced, the one he used on clients at the bank. "Morning, Ma," he called. Voice too bright for 8:15 a.m. Figured you could use some caffeine and a croissant. Hope you haven't eaten? I opened the screen door but didn't step onto the porch. That's thoughtful. Come in. We settled in the living room instead of the kitchen. I didn't want him near that oak table, near where the blue box had sat, near where the phone had rung at. Exactly 11:15. He set the tray on the coffee table, handed me a cup, oat milk latte, exactly how I like it, and sat forward on the edge of the armchair, like he was about to pitch something. We talked surface things first, weather, the new bypass. They were building near Ridgeland, how the grandkids were doing in school, safe topics. Then he leaned in, elbows on knees, voice dropping to that sincere register he used when he really wanted me to listen. "Ma, I need to be honest with you." I took a slow sip. The latte was perfect. That made it worse. "About what exactly?" I asked. "About everything, since Pop." He looked around the room. Family photos on the mantel. The old grandfather clock that still chimed on the quarter hour. The faded floral sofa we'd reupholstered in '98. "You've changed. Closed off. And we're worried. This place. It's too much. Too far from doctors, from people, from help if something happens." I set the cup down carefully. "I'm managing. Are you?" He gestured vaguely toward the window, toward the overgrown fields and the sagging barn roof. "Taxes, utilities, repairs, groceries, it's eating your savings." Isoke ran the numbers. "If you sold now, you'd clear enough to live, comfortably, really comfortably, for the rest of your life. No more worrying about the heater going out in January or the well pump failing." There it was, the real reason for the early visit. "The Vaughn estate is not for sale," I said. Sharper than I meant, his jaw tightened, just a flicker, then smoothed. "Ma, be reasonable. You can't keep this up alone. Winter's coming. What happens if—" "The same thing your father and I did for 37 years, I cut in. "I'll fix it." "Pop is gone." The words came out louder than he intended. He caught himself, softened his tone immediately. "I'm sorry, I want you to be practical. This land is valuable. Developers are circling Jasper County like vultures. Summit Holdings reached out to Isoke's firm 2 weeks ago. They're serious. Cash offer. Numbers you've never seen." "We?" I repeated slowly. He looked away. "Preliminary discussions, but Ma, they're talking high 6 figures. Maybe $500,000. You could retire in style. Assisted living, luxury condo, whatever you want. No more isolation." I felt the phone in my sweater pocket like a coal against my ribs. The voice from last night echoed, "Do not trust Kamani. Do not trust Isoke." "So you've already been talking to them," I said quietly. "Just gathering information, for your benefit." I stood up. "I think it's time for you to go." He rose too, movement stiff. "Ma, think about what I said, seriously. Isoke and we aren't going to watch you run this place, and yourself, into the ground." The threat was soft, wrapped in concern, but it was there. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. "It means we love you, and we're going to do what's best for you, whether you like it or not." He walked out. The screen door slapped shut behind him. I watched from the window as he sat in the driver's seat for a long minute, phone to his ear, face tight with whatever conversation he was having. Then the SUV reversed, taillights flaring red, and disappeared down the drive. My hands shook so badly I had to brace them on the windowsill. I went straight to Balthazar's office, my office now, though it still smelled faintly of his aftershave and old paper. The metal filing cabinet was locked. I knew the combination by heart. Deed, insurance policies, bank statements, his will. I spread them across the desk. The will was simple. Everything to me, then to Kimani upon my death. Nothing unusual. The deed listed both our names, but at the bottom, in tiny print I'd never noticed before, a notation dated 2 months before the accident. Request for professional land survey, or 9/15/2023. Someone had ordered a full boundary and topographic survey of our 40 acres last fall. I powered on the old laptop we shared for family email, one inbox, decades of bills and contracts and photos. I searched, survey, 3 hits. First, confirmation from Low Country Surveying LLC, site visit scheduled mid-September. Second, invoice paid in full, $2,800. Third, an email from an unfamiliar address. Subject, Vaughn Property, preliminary appraisal. I clicked. Dear Mr. Vaughn, thank you for your inquiry regarding the potential sale of your 40-acre estate in Jasper County. Based on the recent survey results, current zoning, and regional development trends, Summit Holdings is prepared to offer a preliminary bid in the range of $450,000, $520,000, contingent on final environmental and access verification. As discussed, we will require clear family consent documentation prior to proceeding. Please advise on timeline for obtaining same. Best regards, Roman Pembroke, Director of Acquisitions, Summit Holdings, LLC. Date, September 28, 2023, 6 weeks before Balthazar's truck went into Cypress Lake. My husband had been quietly negotiating to sell our land, without a word to me. The room tilted. I gripped the desk edge until my knuckles ached. No, not possible. We decided everything together, always. He knew what. This place meant how my mother's rose garden was still out back, how his grandfather had cleared the first field with a mule and a dream, how every board in this house carried our story. If he was planning to sell, why hide it? My phone chirped. Isoki. Theo, good afternoon. Kimani said you were upset this morning. Everything okay? We're always here if you need to talk. Sent exactly 1 hour after he left. Perfectly timed. I didn't reply. I dimmed the screen. I needed more. I opened Balthazar's private email account, the one he used for personal things. The password, our wedding date, it asked for credentials. I typed it. Incorrect. I tried the house address. Incorrect. Kimani's birthday. No. I was cycling through combinations when a sharp knock echoed from the front door. No car in the drive. I hadn't heard tires on gravel. I shoved both phones into my pockets, closed the laptop, and walked to the hallway. A man stood on the porch, mid-40s, sports coat over jeans, leather badge case already open. Mrs. Theodora Vaughn? Yes. Lead investigator Sterling Thorne, South Carolina State Bureau of Investigation. May I come in? We need to speak about your husband's case. New information has surfaced. My mouth went dry. I couldn't refuse without raising flags, and I didn't know enough yet to know who was safe. Of course. We sat in the living room. He pulled out a small notepad. Pen poised, calm, approachable, the way interrogators are trained to look when they want you to relax. I know this is difficult, he began. We're reviewing older cases regarding the incident at Cypress Lake. A witness has come forward. I waited. Someone claims they saw another vehicle following your husband's truck that night. Close tail, aggressive driving. My pulse hammered in my throat. Following him? That's what the witness says. We're verifying. But it raises questions about the original ruling of accident only. He paused, eyes steady on mine. Mrs. Vaughn, did your husband have any issues lately? Financial strain? Disputes? Anyone threatening him? Anything unusual about the property itself? The Summit email burned behind my eyes. The survey, the secret appraisal, the cash withdrawals I hadn't even looked at yet. No, I said. Nothing like that. The lie came smooth. Too smooth. He studied me a long moment. If you're holding something back, now is the time. If his death wasn't accidental, you could be in danger too. The exact phrase from the midnight call. I swallowed. I understand, but I have nothing to add. He nodded once, set a business card on the coffee table. If anything changes, if you remember anything, call, day or night. When the door closed behind him, I locked every bolt and leaned against the wood, breathing hard. A new witness, another vehicle, not an accident. And the voice on the phone had warned me, do not trust. The police. I returned to the office, pulled Balthazar's phone out again, ran my fingers along the edges once more. Nothing else hidden, but the note was enough. The truth is buried. Search. I closed my eyes. Thought back through the years. Balthazar's habits, his quiet humor, His insistence on hiding things in plain sight, Christmas gifts in the potato bin, love notes taped inside cabinet doors. And then it came. The roses. Mama's rose garden behind the house. When she passed, we planted a memorial bush. Deep red hybrid tea, the kind she loved. Balthazar dug the hole himself, deep, joked that it was big enough to hide a body, or a fortune. If he buried something literal, it would be there. I stood, heart racing. But before I could move toward the back door, tires crunched again. Different engine, sharper. Isoke's silver sedan pulled up alone. She never came without Kimani. I opened the door before she knocked. "Isoke?" She smiled. No warmth in it. Tailored suit, heels, hair pulled so tight it looked painful. "Good evening, Theo. I won't be long." I wanted to follow up on this morning. Kimani already said everything. I'm not sure he did. She walked in without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes swept the room, appraising, calculating square footage and resale value. We ended up in the living room again. She sat, I didn't. "Kimani said you were upset when he mentioned selling." I understand sentimentality, but we have to be realistic. My reality is that this land has fed 3 generations. I'm not paving it for condos. She pulled out her phone, scrolled. "As your daughter-in-law and as the person who may one day be responsible for your care, I reviewed your financials. You went into our accounts. Legally, and what I saw concerns me. You're depleting savings too quickly. At this rate, 18 months until serious trouble. And then there are the irregularities in the year before Balthazar's passing. Large cash withdrawals, transfers to unknown accounts. The IRS might become interested. Not concern. Threat. Get out," I said quietly. She stood, smoothed her skirt. "If you agreed to sell, all these problems disappear. You'd live comfortably, safely. We'd handle the tax questions, the strange transactions. Meaning I'd be easier to control. Meaning you'd be protected." Her voice hardened. "This is a big property. Theo, secluded, barn, woods, old well by the north field. Accidents happen on farms, especially to elderly women living alone." The room tilted again. "Are you threatening me?" "Of course not." Her smile was thin. "I'm sympathizing." She paused at the door. "We've consulted a guardianship attorney. South Carolina law allows relatives to petition if an elderly person is making irrational decisions that endanger themselves. It's a protection. You wouldn't. We would. If we believe you're harming yourself by refusing help, you have 1 week to reconsider. Then we explore other options." Her heels clicked down the porch steps. I closed the door, locked it. They were planning to declare me incompetent. Take control. Sign the sale papers themselves. I went to the bank statements on the laptop. There they were. Cash withdrawals. 70, 120, 180, all in the 6. Months before the accident. All cash. No memo line. Stopped 1 week before the lake. Not hiding money. Payments. To someone. For protection. For information. For a lawyer. For the truth. I packed a small overnight. Bag upstairs. Clothes, medication, cash, documents, Balthazar. His phone and the note went in the inside zip pocket. I wasn't running yet, but I was ready. And somewhere in the back of my mind, the rosebush waited. The clock on the kitchen wall showed 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until midnight. I stood by the bedroom window, curtain pulled back just enough to see the yard. The barn sat dark and silent, its double doors closed the way I always left them. No lights, no movement, only the faint silver of moonlight on the wet grass and the black outline of the old red building that had stood there longer than I had. Footsteps on the porch earlier, slow, deliberate, heavy. A hooded figure had appeared out of the shadows, raised a hand in that short, familiar wave Balthazar used to give when he came in from the fields, then pointed once toward the barn before vanishing into the dark like smoke. My chin had trembled. My knees had nearly given out. Then the text on Balthazar's phone, "Barn midnight, come alone, trust no one else." I had 13 minutes to decide if I was chasing a ghost or walking into a trap. Fear tasted like copper in my mouth, but doing nothing tasted worse. I went downstairs, grabbed the small LED flashlight from the junk drawer. In the pantry I hesitated. Hammer, wrench, heavy screwdriver. I picked up the hammer, felt its weight, imagined swinging it. My stomach turned. Instead I took my regular phone, opened the voice recorder app, pressed start, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. If something happened tonight, at least there would be proof. At 11:58 I stepped outside. The November air hit like a slap, cold, damp, smelling of pine and wet earth. No hat, no gloves. I'd dressed too fast. The gravel crunched under my boots louder than it should have. Every step felt like betrayal, of common sense, of safety. of the woman I used to be who never went looking for trouble after dark. The barn door was ajar, not wide, just a crack. Warm yellow light spilled out, lantern light, not the harsh overhead bulb. Someone was inside. I pushed the door open. It creaked like every horror story I'd ever heard. Inside, familiar smells of hay dust, motor oil, old wood. The stalls along the wall, the pile of scrap lumber, Balthazar's workbench with tools still laid out in neat rows. In the center sat the rusted tractor we never could afford to fix. On the workbench burned a small battery lantern, casting long shadows. A man stood beside it, tall, broad shoulders, the same posture Balthazar held when he was thinking hard. Weight on one leg, hands loose at his sides. For one impossible second, I thought it was him. Balthazar? The name slipped out like a prayer. The man stepped forward into the light. Not Balthazar, but the resemblance was cruel. Early 50s, same build, same strong jaw, but harder edges, scar running down his left cheek, gray eyes that had seen too much, weathered skin, military haircut going silver at the temples. Who are you? My voice came out angry instead of scared. And why are you playing games with me? Elias Vance. His voice was low, raspy, like someone who'd smoked too many cigarettes in too many stakeouts. Your husband asked me to be here if things went wrong. My husband is dead. He's been gone a year. I know. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a leather badge case, flipped it open. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Organized Crime and Drug Enforcement Task Force. Special Agent Elias Vance. My legs felt like water. I leaned against an old crate. You were the second car, I whispered. The one the investigator mentioned. You chased him. No. Sharp. I was covering him. He laid the badge on the workbench so I could see it clearly. 2 years ago, your husband came to us. Said something strange was happening on his land. Northfield, near the old stone wall. Natural cave system. Someone using it as storage. I blinked.
What cave?
We've lived here 40 years. I've never heard of any cave. Your son did. Elias's voice softened. He found the entrance about 5 years ago. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. And what was he doing there? Elias pulled a thin folder from under the lantern, spread photos across the workbench. Night vision green, men in hoodies carrying crates into a gap between boulders. Close up, the stone wall, a black void behind it. Third photo, Kamani and Isoki in a parking lot, handing a thick envelope to a stranger. I touched the image like it might burn.
This is fake.
I wish it was. He explained in calm, clinical sentences. For 5 years, Kamani had been leasing the cave as a stash house. Drugs came in, sat for weeks, went out to distributors across the state. He took a cut. Isoke organized the logistics, shell companies, legal cover, connections through her firm. Her clients weren't clean. Balthazar had seen it, followed them, documented, came to the feds. Elias was field agent. Sloan Whitaker was his handler. 18 months building the case, careful, quiet. Then someone burned them, probably local law enforcement. Balthazar became a liability. The night at Cypress Lake, Elias tailing at a distance. Another car came out of the woods, pinned the truck, forced it into the ditch. By the time Elias reached the water, the truck was sinking, clean, no witnesses. Local sheriff happy to call it accident. Why didn't you tell me? My voice cracked. For a year I thought he just lost control. Because if you knew, you'd have asked questions. You'd have confronted Kamani, Isoki, Thorne, and you'd have been next. And now? Now they're accelerating, pressuring you to sell. Once the land transfers, they seal the cave, destroy evidence, cash out. Or an accident. Old woman? Big farm. Well, barn stairs. Easy. I remembered Isoki's words. The guardianship threat. Why not arrest them now? Not enough for the top. We have photos, surveillance. But we need Balthazar's stash, the documents, recordings, ledger. He hid them. Said only you would know where. I pulled the folded note from my pocket. Handed it over. Elias read it. The truth is buried. Search. Where did you find this? In his phone. Hidden in the case. Elias's face changed. The woman who gave you the box. Gray hair, bun, dark coat. Yes, Sloan Whitaker. His handler. She disappeared 3 days ago. Went dark. We thought she was compromised. If she's surfacing now, she doesn't trust anyone above ground anymore. He looked toward the barn door. We don't have long. They're watching. As if summoned, headlights swept across the windows. Then another set, then a third. Elias yanked me back into shadow. They're here. Through a crack in the boards, Kamani's SUV at the gate. Silver sedan behind it. Gray Ford. Detective Thorne stepped out. Kamani's voice carried across the yard. Ma, we know you're in there. Bedroom light went off. Then we saw you come to the barn. Come out, let's talk. Isoke, Theo, stop this. We're worried. Thorn murmured into a radio. Elias pulled his phone. Backup's 20 minutes out, minimum. Kimani again, closer. Ma, please, don't make us do something we don't want to do. Elias looked at me. Decide now. Believe me, Sloan, your husband, or them. I gripped the flashlight. Back door. Rose garden. Dig at Mama's bush. Whatever's there, take it and run to the logging road. Flag help. And you? I'll hold them. He pressed the flashlight into my hand. Once you're out, don't stop. If you hear shots, keep running. He turned toward the front. I slipped to the back. I heard the barn door swing open. Elias's voice, clear, official. Federal Agent Elias Vance. Everyone stay where I can see your hands. On the hood, now. Shouts, confusion. Who the hell are you? From Kimani. I pushed through the back door and ran. Night swallowed me. Flashlight beam bouncing. Grass, fence, garden gate. The latch stuck. I yanked until it gave. Fell to my knees at the red rose bush. Soil cold, hard-packed, but the top layer gave way. I dug with fingers, nails splitting, dirt under every nail. Behind me, footsteps on gravel. Kimani's voice. Ma, what are you doing? Deeper. Fingers hit plastic. I yanked. A small waterproof container, wrapped tight. Kimani running now. Ma, stop! I clutched the box, scrambled up, bolted for the woods. Branches whipped my face. Thorns tore my jacket. Flashlights stabbed through trees behind me. Theo! Isoke's shriek. You're making this harder. I knew these woods. Every trail, every hollow. Burst onto the old logging road. Packed dirt, moonlit. 20 yards ahead, car. Headlights on. Passenger door open. Get in! Woman's voice. Sloan. I lunged inside. She floored it before the door shut. In the rear view, Kimani and Isoke on the road, waving, shouting, shrinking. Sloan drove hard and silent for 10 minutes. Then, you got it? Yes. Good, then we have a chance. She handed me her phone. Encrypted message open. You have 24 hours to return the documents and convince your mother to sell. If you fail, we clean up loose ends. Her, the agents, everyone. Timestamp minutes ago. They thought they still had control, Sloan said. They don't. We stopped at a roadside motel, peeling paint, cash only. 1 room, 2 beds, table, old TV. Sloan set the container on the carpet, sliced the wrap with a knife, lid off. Inside, USB drive. Worn leather notebook, envelope with my name in Balthazar's hand. I took the envelope first, hands shaking. Sloan plugged the drive into her laptop. Read, I'll start copying. I opened it. My dearest Theodora. The letter was long, gentle, devastating. He'd known for a year and a half, wanted to be wrong. Confronted Kimani, believed the promises. Then brakes failed on his truck. Then intruders in the office. Then sheriff told him to back off. He went to the feds. Gathered evidence at night. Risked everything. The drive held it all. Transfers, recordings, photos, map of the cave. The notebook, day-by-day notes. Cave exits. Emergency tunnel to the old Peterson place. And a trust fund, set up quietly. Enough to keep the land or leave forever. Ticket to Dublin. Instructions. Go, live, for both of us. I finished crying. Sloan handed me a tissue without looking up. He knew they'd come for you too, she said. He believed you'd finish it. My phone buzzed. Elias on speaker. Voice strained. Broken arm. Cracked ribs. At the station. Thorn holding him. They're going to Atlanta. For Amara. Think you sent the evidence there. Or you're headed there. Ice in my veins. We hide her, Sloan said. Won't stop them forever, Elias replied. Blackwood's the head. As long as the cave's active, he's ahead. We end it tonight. Sloan called Charleston. Trusted contact. 8 agents. Entry from Peterson's side. Recording everything. Plan, I go home. Act compliant. Tell them the drive's already with feds. Stall. I returned alone. House dark except kitchen light. They were waiting. Kimani at the table, head down. Isoke by window. Thorn against fridge. 2 heavy men I didn't know.
Welcome home, one smirked.
I set my bag down. Why are you in my house? Kimani started. Ma, it's simple. Quiet, Isoke said. Theo, we want the papers. You get peace. A nice place. The estate goes to people who can manage it. I pulled my phone out. It's recording, everything. And the conversation. From 3 days ago, Isoke explaining. Balthazar had to be taken care of, is safe. Thorn scoffed. If feds had anything. They do, I said. Already in Charleston. One goon stepped forward. Enough, where are they? Sloan from doorway, federal agent. Hands where I can see them. Lights cut, chaos, shots, groans. I dropped, crawled to back door, out to porch. Sloan. It's over. Kitchen, Thorn cuffed. Goon zip-tied. Isoke furious. Kimani on sofa trembling. I looked at him. Mom.
Don't.
He sobbed. I didn't want Pop to die. I was in debt. Isoke said, just use the cave. Then it spun out. I told him. He said he'd turn me in. Isoke said we'd all go down. You didn't stop it. I know. I turned away. 3 months later, cave sealed. Blackwood facing life. Thorn plea, 10 years. Isoke 22. Kimani took deal. 12 years, testifying. I hired young farmers for the land. Started a farm stand. Amara stayed a while. One day, letter from prosecutor. Kimani sorry. Doesn't expect forgiveness. May, I visited. He looked old. Broken. I can't forgive yet, I said. But if you change, maybe then we talk. Summer, lawyer brought final envelope. Balthazar's last words. Go to Ireland. Live. I booked the ticket. At 65, I wasn't China anymore. I was Stone. And Stone stands.